Okay, in order to understand budget authority, you need to know how school districts are financed in Iowa, which is a very good question. There is a graphic that we've used in class, and I know that numerous organizations and school districts use a graphic like this to explain it. I'm going to use something a little different to help visualize this. So we're going to start with the uniform levy, which is $5.40 per assessed $1,000 assessed valuation. So this is property taxes times the district assessed valuation. So we're going to start here with a piece of bread. This is our uniform levy. Now I'm going to compare two districts here. So we have a property rich district and a property poor district that we're looking at. So our property rich district is going to start off, well, we'll do this many. Let's start off with a uniform levy looking like this. So this is property tax coming from the communities. Next, the next layer comes the state foundation aid. So in order to kind of equalize this, our state aid coming from our property poor district, the state aid really kind of needs to make up for that. So this is the foundation dollar levy, and you subtract the uniform levy here. Now this is based on enrollment. So this is where the enrollment comes in, and here's our state aid. This is getting us up to 87.5%. So state aid for the property rich district is a lot less. And you'll notice that I'm using ham because we're in the state of Iowa for our state aid. So we're starting off with these layers to begin with. In addition to that, we also have some additional levy. Oops. This is making up our combined district cost. There could be some additional levy there. So that makes up the general fund, most of the general fund for a school district.
What is budget authority?
Okay, so what we have here is combined district cost. In addition to that, we can also add, if we're talking about budget authority, we can add some miscellaneous income, which does look similar to our uniform levy, but it's not. So add some miscellaneous income to that. And then we also have our unspent balance. So this is what was not spent the year before. Okay, so I have two different districts here, very different in makeup of where they're getting their funding. But we're going to go ahead and just look at one of them for right now. We'll take a look at this district that was funded mostly out of state foundation aid. Off on the side of a district's budget authority, there's also some cash reserves, which we'll use chips. Your chips, you're not going to put them in your sandwich, so they're not really a part of the whole of what we're talking about. They're off on the side, still important, still useful, but not in the budget authority. Now, one thing that can cause a problem is if you have a cash reserve levy, sometimes you're not quite understanding what might happen to your unspent balance. So if there are no cash reserve levies and the expenditures and revenues from the previous year matched, then your unspent balance will remain just as it is, as expected. But if you had a cash reserve levy in place, that needs to be subtracted from the revenue that you made the previous year and then compare it to the expenditures. So then if after you subtract that cash reserve levy from your revenues, your expenditures exceed the revenues, then sadly, you're going to have to remove some of your unspent balance because it is gone. However, if your expenditures after subtracting that the cash reserve levy from your revenues, if your expenditures don't exceed your revenues, you can add to your unspent balance. We're out of toothpicks, so we're going to have to just throw that on. So, in the end, budget authority is actually quite delicious.
What is the reason for spending limits?
Spending limits are the amount you can legally spend. It's like your line of credit. Most superintendents budget to the max because you want to have that, have all of that funding open and available. So it is important to keep those spending limits, that spending authority, to a maximum. In order to preserve and protect that, you really want to increase your combined district cost and increase that miscellaneous income. In order to increase that, petition the SBRC for more allowable growth, and also control expenditures. You want to make sure that you're spending money on the right things for kids and for the district, and certainly always hoping for increased enrollment. That would be helpful too.
How can we be cutting teachers and building a new school at the same time?
Well, it is hard to think about why within a school district, if they're building a brand new building, why at the same time they would be cutting teachers, isn't it the same money? Which is really what a lot of community members and even educators within a school system may think. So it's all about education here. The different funding silos that make up a school district's budget consist of well, here's some actual silos. One is the general fund. This is funded by property taxes and state aid and miscellaneous income, and this is one of those silos. Generally, it covers teacher compensation, which is a lot of that. Most of the makeup of the school district is right here. A lot of the people, instruction comes in this silo. In addition to that, though, there are some other funds, like there's a management fund, and this one comes from property taxes, as does this one too, with state aid and miscellaneous income. This one covers liability, unemployment, early retirement, but it's a different silo. It's a completely different color. In addition to that, we've got PEPL, the physical plant equipment levy, which is different as well. As this is also property tax, but a different property tax. Covers construction and repairs and remodeling, and there are several others. We'll just do two more. One is an enterprise fund. This is like nutrition, food and nutrition within a school district, and they basically, it's like their own business. So they're getting funding. Families actually pay them. The government does pay them for free and reduced lunch, but there's money coming in for their product. And then there's also agency funds, which are like fundraisers, and they're not tax-based at all. So then you have these different silos, and there are others too. We're just going with 5 here. But where teachers mainly come out of this general fund, they do come out of this general fund. I can't say we've got some money in the PEPL funding silo, which is meant to be used for construction, repair, remodeling. We can't pour that into our general fund to pay for teachers. This is solely for those construction, repair, and remodel type things. The enterprise fund, really, it can't go into any of these. It's solely either food and nutrition or like a before or after school daycare at school. That's where those enterprise funds come in. So you may be able to use a couple of funds to make up something. Maybe if you have some agency fund, a general fund, and maybe a PEPAL budget to cover maybe a renovation at a school that maybe you're using some donations, their fundraisers to fund a playground, which there's another silo too called Pearl, which could go into that too. PEPAL for some of those renovations, the construction, and your generals to buy some furniture. So you can use different funds to pay for maybe one big project that had different components, but really if you're looking at building or constructing a new building, it really comes out of a completely different silo as where the teachers would be funded.
Is the number one problem school districts face financially?
Well, that's a good question. The number one reason why school districts are in trouble financially is because of enrollment. So if you have declining enrollment, you're not getting any new money. And so if you're not growing, that funding is not coming in. Because districts are about 75% to some are 85% compensation, that means it's people, and that's the hardest thing to cut when you have people in positions. So districts with declining enrollment sometimes do not, or they avoid cutting the people because they want to keep them on and kind of have this sense of hope that maybe some of that funding will come back to the point where they can't recover, which at that point the solvency ratio goes down as districts try to maintain, and then they can't keep up. Now, for example, in Des Moines, in 2008, the state predicted that they were going off a funding cliff. Des Moines Public Schools responded with a 10% cut in staffing. The state ended up not going completely off that cliff, but Des Moines had already cut all that 10% of staff, and with that, Des Moines was able to build up its solvency ratio, which in the years since, they've been able to restore those positions, some of those funded with some of those cash reserves. If I can add a second, well, actually, this was in the Des Moines Register just this week about enrollment dropping. They're doing a whole series on lost schools. A lot of these smaller rural districts are having to close due to enrollment and just not being able to get the funding that they need to remain open. But a second reason why school districts would get in trouble financially is not knowing the difference between cash and spending authority. The spending authority is how much you can spend within a school year, and cash is separate from that. You can use some of that cash, but it isn't in the authority or the amount you can spend along with the other funding sources. This is also a false sense of hope, where the districts feel like they have a large cash reserve, so that they feel like they're funded and that they have all that they need, but in reality they may not actually be able to dip into all of that to use throughout the school year. In Des Moines Public Schools, that has been built up over time. The cash reserves have, so that now there is a solid cash reserve for one-time expenditures, which is mainly what they're saving it for. So really, in the end, you really need to monitor those two sets of books, the spending authority as well as the cash.